You must have dropped a...
It's recording. Nope.
No? You didn't drop it.
Drop what?
A pencil sharpener.
No, I just dumped my stuff over there.
Oh!
I usually end up coming in and vacuuming.
Oh, wait. Before you sit down, turn on those lights behind you. Remember? Oh, only 49 followers are active now.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either. There is one person watching.
One? Cool.
Oh. There they go. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Sup?
Not much. What's up with you?
Not much. Sup with you?
More than one. There are more than one. Whew. What are you drawing for us this time?
I just printed out a picture of my elongated head.
I saw that. Love your work, sir. I emailed you a month ago but didn't have luck with response. Oh, I will get to you, pixel surgery. I apologize for that. I will email you back. Olga is using the main account. She didn't give me the password.
What now?
Someone's on their other account.
Huh.
So what's up?
Not much.
Not much. Not much for you.
Just figured I would draw my elongated head.
Oh. Very cool.
Not, not trying to do a like tight self-portrait or anything. I'm just using it for like a kind of a caricature type reference because I have a caricature kind of face.
Oh. Parasitic Toenails asks what made you want to draw your elongated head.
I don't know, to do something different because I do creatures a lot on our feet. So,
Hey, very cool. Very cool.
So.
Very cool, very cool. The Alligator 63 says, seriously, one of the greatest artists of our time.
That's very kind. You're very kind. That's a nice thing to say. Thank you.
Bips wants to know, says, hello, have you watched Memory on Stan, The Making of Alien?
I don't think I have. My friend Daryl's been sending me a bunch of links lately about Geiger and his process and interviews and stuff like that, but I don't think I've seen The Making of Alien.
You say your work is stunning.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. So it's always easier, I mean, if you're using, reference, especially if you're, you're not trying to stay really close to it. If you're just doing it like me, I'm just using it for like kind of the exaggeration and to have some detail in it, so I'm going to elongate things even more. I guess you could say it's more like even a caricature,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Ashley Rose asks, how many years have you been drawing?
Well, I mean, pretty much my whole life, I guess, but professionally, since I guess 1988 is when we figured that out, huh?
Yes, 88, which would be 32 years. What is the pencil gradation? Probably the hardness of it. Is that a 6B?
What now? This is 6B, yeah.
6B pencil?
Yeah. So it's always interesting when you're drawing from reference because what you don't end up doing ends up, at first it looks kind of funny because it's, it doesn't look like the photo sometimes, unless you take a lot of time to really, observe and make things accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But which I could do. I could sit here if I wanted to, either grid it or, just sit here and eyeball it for a long time and just go back and forth and erase a lot to find the perfect lines and stuff. But don't really care about that right now.
Right. Pixel Surgery asked if you stick to a specific brand of pencil. You really like the Tombow Mono 100s.
I do. I like the Tombow Mono 100s and the Mitsubishi Hayoni for the real soft lead. But mostly the Mono 100s I use almost all the time now.
And you're using the Strathmore 400 medium weight?
Yeah, just a regular surface drawing paper. Medium surface, I guess it is.
Mm-hmm.
Not terribly smooth or, because I like the tooth a bit.
How do you sharpen your pencils? Crying Buddy Tirabus asks.
I use, most of the time it's the Coombe long point, where you'll take the wood off on one side, and then you can see it. The other side just sharpens the lead, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And these give you a really good, usually pretty good point. And I also use the Dale, pencil sharpeners, which I take the lead stop out of, and then they have a little plastic piece in there that will keep you from sharpening all the way to a point.
Too sharp. Yes.
Yeah, so I usually get that and grind it out or take it out or whatever.
Rick the Painter says, thanks to you, I feel like you have helped me improve as an amateur artist. Love the chit-chat between you both.
Oh.
Could watch artists all day.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thanks for watching.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
absolutely.
I mostly use a reference for guideposts. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have things in the past that I've done that have been specifically there for, to be kind of accurate with, especially if I'm doing something that's, I don't know, I tend to try to stick closer to it when I'm doing more figurative stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because you can really, go out of bounds pretty quickly with a figure, and if you're not stylizing the whole figure, it'll show up.
Look wonky.
Yeah.
Well, Ashley Rose asked, how many sketchbooks do you fill in a year?
It's hard for me to say because I don't use just one sketchbook, and I don't stay in one sketchbook until it's finished. I have a bunch of drawing pads like these, and
That have like three drawings.
I tend to pick them up, draw things in them, and tear them out, and so I don't really fill up a sketchbook.
Right.
I do have one sketchbook that I go back and forth with a little bit, but it's even that one I don't use all the time.
Well, we usually, like once a year, we'll go through all of the half-used sketchbooks and see there's like 2 pieces of paper in it or
Right.
something, unused paper. And Argon Star asks, have you experienced imposter syndrome?
All the time, actually. We were talking about this, I think, last week. There's always a time where I feel like, that I one time I feel expressly lucky to be able to, to do this for a living because, it's so much fun. And at the other time, I think, I had a friend once say, yeah, we have to do this for as long as we can until people find out how much fun we're having and they make us stop. So it's like sometimes, it's like this thing. It's like you sit here and go, I'm getting away with something. I'm getting away with doing this for a living when some people, there are a lot of people that have a rough time, especially. I mean, and we didn't start out this way, right? We've been doing it for a long time, and we've gone through various levels of being able to afford food or not.
It's true.
And then after a point, I guess you could say I got more confident with my ability to do the stuff that I wanted to do, and just started doing that, and that helped a lot too. So.
Right. Yes. Rainwave asks, do you multitask when you draw, or does it take your full attention?
If you mean by like multitask, I sometimes will have music, audiobooks, or TV going on. Like I watch things on iPad or whatever, like.
But you don't really watch them.
I don't really watch them. I just listen to things, and it's usually like stuff I've watched or I've seen before, so I don't have to look up all the time. So. But
Ash McNair asks, hello to both of you. What
Hello.
is expressed in some of your more abstract work, the work that doesn't really have a clear form or subject?
I used to say it was kind of a map of my subconscious or my psyche. These are just it's the way that I imprint patterns on chaos, I guess you could say. And a lot of times, even the more abstract forms have a sort of a figure sort of buried in them somewhere, or an entity in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I like shapes that begin to look like something, but then when you look at them on examination, you find out they're not really what they appear to be. It's sort of an ongoing, I guess, a theme that things aren't often what they look like they are. It's that whole thing about that beauty doesn't equal goodness, and things which are grotesque don't equal them
Right.
being bad or wretched or even
Right. Or that you perceive as
right.
that. How do you draw hair without it looking overworked?
I sometimes draw hair that looks very overworked. But the way that I try to do it is actually I draw with the side a lot, and I try to I draw like sometimes I'll draw clumps of hair. Sometimes I'll get back into it and draw like individual strands.
Oh,
It just depends.
Right. You don't do every individual strand.
No, not usually. So it usually helps just to draw like the shape and the volume of it. Whereas something like this, if I were really going to get into it, I could get into drawing just the gray, where it's defined, like just a few real sharp lines and stuff.
Someone asked when you took this photo.
Like 10 minutes ago before we started.
Yes, that's what he looks like. Did you stretch that out?
No, that's what my head looks like.
Well, you said your elongated head.
Well, my head just looks elongated. Of course, that's part of that is the lens of the phone,
Right.
But mostly it's my head.
Yes.
So
Your head isn't elongated. I couldn't figure out why you kept saying that.
it looks very long to me. It's because of the cheeks are kind of sunken. It makes it stretch out and look a little bit more.
Right.
I have like this. If you see this in comics, they draw it in comics a lot, but you don't see it on people that often because they have more weight in the cheek right here. I don't lay down.
I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
Artie Majaws asks, I'd like to become an artist when I'm older, but I'm worried about being financially stable. Is it worth the risk?
It's
We
it
have
depends on what you
often-
mean by financially stable,
Right.
right? Because the stability that you have in mostly comes from your own persona, right? So there are times when we didn't make as much money, but I felt stable because I was secure in the fact that I would keep working at doing something until I did. It's like I traveled a lot when I was young, and I had to live in unstable environments, so I guess I grew to become stable in myself no matter where I am. And being financially stable to me is obviously, there's a lot more to it because, if you don't have money for food, it's really difficult to do certain things.
Right.
And we've been there before, and when I was younger, we would do different jobs. Is it worth the risk? I don't know if that's the way you answer that question. I think it is whether or not you're an artist and you want to do art. It's more about answering that question first, and then if you are an artist and you do want to do this kind of stuff for a living, the risk is something that you manage.
Right. You have to figure out if it's, that's all so individual, right?
Right, because
do
there's,
you have kids? Do you have
I
a
could give you,
spouse?
we've talked about this before too, I could give you a completely, like a business model of myself or somebody else that has, has done artwork for a living and has been successful at it. And there's no guarantee that it'll work for you. There's no guarantee that, for instance, that, for one thing, we all do different art. We're
Right.
all making different products, and even if we're all working in the same medium, we all make different things, and so it's like very difficult to use a business model across the board that works for everybody, right?
Right.
So it's just one of those things where, you know, if you're an artist, you're going to do it, and the risk management is kind of, it's like I want to say it's not something you should think about, especially at the beginning, because you have to find out if this is something you want to do before you, like, I wouldn't do any job based on whether or not, for me, this is my own personal opinion. I wouldn't pick a job based on my thoughts of how well or poorly I would succeed at it. I would do it based on whether or not it was something I needed to do.
Right.
And if that's the case, then there's a certain kind of success in that you can continue even if you don't make a living at it, right? Because you know, there are a lot of artists out there who work for game companies, who do other things for a living that don't necessarily, you know, line up exactly with their needs as an artist, because, you know, we got to make a living at different points.
Right. Right.
You know.
Well, and then
But
this kind of also bounces off of it. What percentage of your work is client work versus personal projects?
I
That
don't know.
is, well,
I've never broken it down like that, but in a general year, about a third of my year has been doing movies,
right.
and then the other
Movies or
2/3,
client work.
yeah, and the other 2/3 of the year is my own. Like, so it breaks down like that.
Yes.
So about a third in
Right.
terms of time, but usually the movie work kind of subsidizes my personal work, but sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes I've done really well with my personal work in a given year,
Right.
and it has made more than the film work, you know, that I've done in terms of
Right.
content.
I mean, and at one point when we were doing you were doing other kinds of work, different genres of artwork, still was much more fantasy, and you know, we would make most of our income. Most of the income wasn't on contract work.
No, it was almost
You know, so
always
it
all
kind of-
personal work at that
Kind
point.
of fluctuates, and like, you know, this year everything shut down.
Right.
all
There
movie work.
haven't been that many films kicking off for
Right.
from what I've seen and heard.
So you've just pushed hard all the personal work. Keep shoving it at you. Although you've got some.
I do have a
Contracts.
contract that
You got a couple contracts
Well, I have an
lined up.
open-ended contract that I've been thinking about quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I've been playing with behind the scenes, because I like, if I have like an open end on a timeline on something, I like to take as much time as I possibly can to get to it, because I just like to think about it for a long time. You can't often do that, but in this particular instance, I wasn't given a hard deadline on anything. So
What types of jobs let you work with pencil and paper in the digital age?
every concept art job I've been on has let me work with pencil and paper. When I've chosen to do digital work, it's just simply because I wanted to do something in the digital world.
Right.
When I work for Del Toro, he absolutely would rather see graphite than digital, even though he does. You know, he employs digital artists as well, and I don't think he has a bias against it. I think he just likes having originals at the end of it, because he takes everything and keeps it.
Right.
You know, but yeah, for my part, almost everybody that's hired me, nobody's ever asked for digital, really. You know.
Yeah, Vita says, I love your art.
Oh, thank you.
Metal Babe says, hope you're both doing okay and are safe.
Oh yeah, well, you know, we're basically in the house most of the time, and we only really go out for groceries and
I
meds
made
and
the
stuff.
kids come with me today.
Oh, you guys, yeah, they went blueberry picking today.
We did, because it's gonna rain for the next 4 days, because we have a tropical storm heading our way.
I love storms. I mean, I don't, you know, I don't like, you know, people getting damaged by storms, but a storm is my natural environment.
What's your favorite art medium?
I would say that my first love is probably graphite, but I love oils as well, because, you know, there's a lot of stuff about oils. I mean, I move faster in oil than I do in graphite. You know, you can lay in a background color in oil, and, you know, a fraction of the time it takes to do a gradient or a solid layer of graphite. Well, if you do it, if you're making it smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I pretty much I go back and forth between whatever medium I happen to be working in at the time. Like I'm doing this for this, but I do have I have oil paintings that I'm working on at the same time. I have a couple pieces in progress and some that are ready to. I have one that's sketched on the board over there that's 24 by 48.
It's a big one. Yes.
That I was kind of building up to. It's all a question of stamina too. It's like, what do you have the energy to work on? To me, it's like so easy just to sit down and grab a pencil and work. Whereas, to me, oils are a little bit more. You have to a little bit more preparation.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Absolutely. The Lotus King was made in which medium? That started out.
It was started off with powdered graphite and ended with oil.
Right. Powdered graphite, and it was 24 by 48.
24 by
also.
48. Yeah, a large piece. For me, anyway.
Yes. I'll post this drawing after he's done with it.
I'll see where I take it and what I do with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'll show you let me grab the one I was working on before though. This is the one I've been working on this week.
Oh, yeah. Step in the way. I like that part right there.
Mm-hmm. What, this?
Yeah,
Things are kind of flying off.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Okay.
How do you scan your work? Photography or scanner?
When it's like a painting or something that has a lot of gloss to it, it's the photographs tend to do better than the scanner does. I have an oversized Epson that the expression, what is it, 10,000 XL that does like 12 by 18, and I'll scan pieces on that. It's been the best one I've had so far.
Angelo says, I was told that you can't put pencil under oil because it eventually works its way up.
You have to seal it. I seal it with an acrylic varnish before I put oil on top of it. I don't oil directly on top of any paper, for one thing.
Right.
And because the oil will eventually eat through the paper, so I end up like completely sealing it with either a gloss matte medium or a matte medium.
Gotcha.
And not a gloss matte. A gloss medium or a matte medium.
Gotcha.
Sometimes just I'll start with a spray fixative and then paint medium on top of it. But I usually end up with a pretty clear plastic layer that actually exists between the pencil and so it doesn't really go anywhere.
Right.
So.
Sorry. Do you recommend any exercises to learn how to draw fantastical subjects, not just drawing things exactly as they are?
Yeah, you can grab insects and any kind of interesting animal anatomy and just what if you do like let's see, I think Ian does this a lot. Ian McKay, you'll like for instance, I use like the greyhound form a lot.
Right.
So if you do like a drawing of a greyhound, a study, and then put that away after you've done it. But then take your memory of that, and then take that and apply it and make it into a creature that isn't a greyhound, but use the anatomy cues like the chest volume and
I think Bryn Metheny does that.
She does it too, yeah. And I think also Terrell Whitlatch does it as well.
Right.
She does a lot of comparative anatomy. That's probably the most straightforward way of doing biology in terms of stuff that looks real. Much of the stuff that I do is loosely based on figurative and biological stuff, but I don't, because I'm doing something aesthetic with it. I take a lot of liberties with whether or not the biology would work, because a lot of it is metaphor or is meant to be viewed as sort of it's more about the aesthetic quality of the piece than whether or not this looks like an alien biology that could exist.
Right. So they're asking about the piece from last week that was holding the black spheres. You were painting on it.
That. Hold on.
You totally he just looked at me like, what are you talking about? He totally forgot about that one.
I did.
Did you finish 2 paintings this
week? I
week?
actually did. I finished this one too. So that's the one that
Okay, hold on.
So I kind of forgot about it. I finished it, and then I put like a layer of my medium on top of it to create like a
to dry.
transparent
That's
layer.
right. That's 2 days
And so
ago.
I set it up there to dry, and I just forgot about it.
Completely forgot about it. All right.
'Cause
And this was on what kind of?
This is on Arch's 300-pound hot press watercolor paper that I did a drawing first, a light, not like this kind of a drawing.
No, I think you just did the acrylic, didn't you?
No.
Or was it?
I did a light drawing, and then went back over I went, over it with, I sealed it very much with another, like a gloss medium. The whole thing is sealed with gloss medium first, and then oil on top of that, and then oil medium on top of that. So
Yes,
I had to research painting on paper because I knew that there's a destructive quality if you oil directly on paper. So you have to, from what I can see from people who make a living just painting on paper, you seal it with a medium. You can size the paper and seal it with a medium to keep it isolated from the oils. But anyway, there's that.
Impressed.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it changed a little bit from beginning to the end.
Very changed.
But
like the red skull now.
Yeah. The funny part, the part that to me I look at and I go, okay, I love this little bit right here that looks like a horn of a rhinoceros beetle that has the striping kind of stuff on it. That's my favorite part. Okay. It's like there's little bits and pieces of things that I like I said.
This guy's striped too.
Yeah. Well, that's this little stuff is just fun to me because it starts to look dimensional.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a whole different head in there, and then I woke up one morning and went, "Oh, that's different."
Yeah, because I got to a point where I was like, and I knew at some point that I was probably going to do it because early on I was like, this head shapes aren't working for me as well.
Right.
And the odd part about that is, like, you can show it to 10 different people and get 10 different responses about whether or not they like that area, right? But at the end of the day, it boils down to what you wanted to be there or what you need to be there. So at one point the skull wasn't there, and these 3 glowing spots served as the focal point for the head, but then I started playing with it and this thing kind of started popping out of the background.
How many sketches do you go through before a piece like this?
I didn't really do sketches for it. I just sat down and started working on a piece in pencil that developed to a point that I wanted to take it further.
Right.
So I'll end up with like drawings like this. I'll do a lot of these kind of things. And this actually was based on another drawing that I did that looks like this, but ended up being so different that this will entirely be another drawing itself. At a different point.
This was your sketch.
This was a sketch that I had done.
Right.
And I thought, oh, well, let me go back and do a little bit more detail.
Right, do a drawing of it.
A drawing, and then I started with it. And I think you can kind of tell that it started that way.
You can see the rib cage and everything.
It started veering off into its own thing, and so I still have this one to go back and try again. So it doesn't really bother me. I just I go, well, this didn't want to be this. This still wants to be. So I'm going to let this be itself, and then I'm going to go back and do this one again and let it be.
And then,
and if it changes again, I'll just go in a different direction again because
there's a couple of them that you have over and over again.
Yeah, and I'll just keep doing it until I either get to the thing I want here or move on to something else. So.
It's fun like that. You never quite know. Oh, and that guy.
Here's another one. I think I might have started this on a live feed at one point. I'm not sure.
You did.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this wasn't this on a live feed at one time?
Yes. Yeah, I have to get all the other, you have to throw those on a flash drive for me.
So, that being said, and looking at these, you should know that we are actually talking to somebody about making a book.
Okay.
A real publisher about making a real book of art. Instead of
I have to put that in the Dropbox, right?
Yeah.
So, This is not the drawing you're working on now.
Oh, no, it's fine. I could have.
And that is not either.
Yeah. I have layers of things that have, you know, it's, I like, part of the reason I like doing the live feed is because I end up, like, generating ideas for pieces that I work on during the week.
Kind of go into
So when you talk about, you know,
sketches
and drawing and making a living, you're pretty much seeing it when I do the live feed, because a lot of the stuff I've been doing has been developing directly out of sitting around talking with
you guys.
with you guys and working, you know.
What inspires you for the patterns and detail shapes for the creatures and stuff?
Very often I'll have an overall shape that I look at, like you saw in the other sketch where I had like the vertical figure, but then a lot of the stuff that happens in the piece comes from an interaction with me playing with the surface quality of the paper. So I'll pretty much will like, you know, I'll draw with the side of the pencil a lot to bring out the tooth, and sometimes, like, if I, you know, like I said, I'll lay down a little bit of graphite, you know, and then I can start to see things pop out. But sometimes I'll just go back in and like just start hitting it a little bit to lighten it, and there'll be like little bits and pieces of things that'll pop out that I'll like, and I'll just emphasize them. So it's almost like having a loose plan, but being willing to go down these little side trails to get to it. Yeah, and not worry about it too much. And if you end up creating a texture you like, you keep it. If you don't like it, you know, you get rid of it. And that being said, after you've done it for a while, you start to be able to kind of like plan like where rhythms and textures are going to fall. But that's more from just having done it and realizing what your paper will do and what you see in the patterns, you know.
So you're just creating a pattern on your forehead there.
Yeah. And really, when it gets down to it, it gets down to also realizing that this is, you might be working sometimes like I do, where I respond to what it seems like the paper and the medium want a lot, but it also, you get to a point where you realize it's all in your control. You know, I'm not making marks that are much different than marks that anybody else makes. I just, you know, impose, you know, my, I guess, subconscious or my psyche on it, and it comes out looking like this, whereas other people, you know, it comes out looking like them. So I mean, we all make kind of the same marks. It's the same notes in music, right? But it just sounds so different when two different people play it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Neil Nick says, I used to hate you for being this unconventional way of drawing and building it up and ending up with such a great work, showing that there's no right or wrong process, as long as the end result turns out as expected and more. And now I hate you for making...
For what?
For making... turn my head most of the time while I'm watching you, but I keep doing it as long as you keep this great work going on.
Oh, well, I appreciate it.
Because they're working while you're working.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. And this is one of those instances where I will receive your hate in the proper way that it was delivered. Yeah, you know, it's a compliment, right? You know that's a compliment when an artist comes up and curses you out or something, says something like that to you, calls you an asshole. I've had that happen to me a lot, though, and I hope it's a compliment. I started taking it that way because it was happening a lot. Hopefully, it's not just because I'm a jerk, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Mostly you're not a jerk.
I've never really.
No,
almost all the artists I've ever met have been nice people, and when somebody says they hate you,
I thought you were talking about to me.
Oh, you? No, you never say that to me.
No, I meant you're not a jerk to me.
Oh, well.
Most of the time. You were being purposely obtuse there.
What?
You can sharpen your pencil.
Oh.
Yeah, I walked in here. Apparently your new thing is throwing all of your pencil shavings on the floor. And now my socks are black.
What? I don't do that.
Oh my God. You just did. I'm coming in here with the shop vac tomorrow.
So, you know
is that a flat?
Sometimes I'll make a flat lead too, just because I like working with a chisel point. I guess it's a chisel point or it's a spatula type point, you know. It does, you know, it's like,
now, is
it gives
that
you
still
more.
a Tombow Manu?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just trimmed it with, you know, an X-Acto blade to get a flat. And it just, I don't know, it just gives you a little bit more of the texture of the paper when you do it that way because it's a broader surface.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the Cume Long Point is just from Dick Blick, right? Or
Yeah,
even
you can get it
Amazon
from anywhere. Dick Blick, Amazon has them.
Any art store. They're like $7 or $6.
Yeah, and they come with 2 spare blades. So
Yes, he throws them
which,
on
yeah,
the floor like peanuts at the bar.
well, yeah, but I end up vacuuming here sometimes. But
Sometimes.
so it comes with 2 spare blades. But remember, if you get this, when they start to dull, first before you use the 2 spare blades that come with it, switch these 2 blades, one for the other, because they're wearing at different places. So if you switch these 2 blades first after they wore out, and then when those 2 wear out again, switch to these 2 blades, and then do it again, it's like having 4 sets of blades. No, seriously. You know,
I believe you. I do.
Because if you
I
think
know,
about it,
it's just-
this one is used to sharpen the wood part, and this one only sharpens the lead, right? So the top part of the blade is
It's
the only
all
part that ever
clean
gets,
and-
it
it's
always
sharp.
gets this one is very little used. So you swap them, and then this one, the part up near the lead isn't really as worn. So it's like having 4 blades instead of 2.
Right. Instead of just throwing out the thing.
Right.
That is a Cume Long Point, K-U-M.
Yeah, we say cume because it's unfortunate if you say it the other way, and people like make fun of it. But, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
But I don't know actually how the people who make the blades pronounce it. But it's spelled K-U-M.
K-U-M. Yeah, just oh my god.
And they're made in Germany.
It just autocorrect Kim. Lord. Okay. Your airbrush has been going off.
I know.
Compressor?
Yeah, my compressor. I use an airbrush to put matte medium on paper when it's really thin, because if you brush it on, it buckles.
Right.
But an airbrush you can spray fix it with matte medium, and if you do it lightly, it won't buckle the paper.
Right. But it keeps going off.
That's just because there's a leak in my hose over there.
Oh, okay. How do you get the chisel point on the pencil?
I use a blade, like an X-Acto. So I use an X-Acto blade to file it down, basically to sharpen it down, right?
There we go.
Use an X-Acto blade to sharpen it, right? And then I use a piece of paper or a sanding block to sand it to a fine point, right? I use these to sharpen erasers.
Yes, because he sharpens erasers.
Yeah. So if you take like the 2mm erasers that come in those Tombow Mono micro erasers, you can put them in a 2mm pencil and sharpen them on these things, and they work just fine. And they're a little bit more controllable than these things are sometimes. So basically, it's the same eraser in both of these. I like it in the pencil format rather than the smaller one.
Gotcha.
Oh, and this is a pencil extender that I've been using.
That's from
Elegant Utility on Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
I think these run around, they're in the $20, $25 range, but I mean, come on, these are brass, and you're probably, if you only need like one, you'll never have to buy another one after this.
Yeah, I know.
So.
Hold on, I'm going back a little bit.
So you notice that, I mean, this face only is slightly structured. It resembles this one structurally a little bit, but it's not really all that accurate, because I didn't really care about being that accurate.
Because you have no eyeballs.
Yeah. For I need none.
Make yourself goat eyeballs. Ash asks, how do the poems or quotes that accompany certain pieces come to you?
Very often it's a mystery to me. I know this sounds kind of weird, but a lot of times they seem like the words will sort of kind of arrange them. I mean, I'll hear it in my head, and like they'll just occur to me. I mean, it's happened. I've read a lot, so it's funny to me that I have this strange thing that kind of happens every now and then. I'll have this phrase that'll pop up in my brain that'll be associated with a piece, and it'll use words that I don't actually know what they mean. And then I'll have to go and look them up, and
They will actually be
100% of the time they are real words that actually fit the meaning of what the piece is about. And I think maybe that I have a subconscious ability maybe to extrapolate context. Words, the meaning of words from context, from things that I've read in the past.
Right.
Like I had one piece where I don't know if I've ever put it out there or not, but it was called the Novation of the Saints. And I had no idea what the word novation meant. And then when I went and looked it up, basically a novation is a new contract, or in another word, a new covenant. And I mean, and it sort of worked with the piece that I was
You had either heard it long ago or whatever.
I might have, yeah, or I don't know
Read
where,
it,
it's there have been things that have it happens a lot, where the words seem like they kind of self-arrange. They'll just sort of pop out.
You're asking, what is the last thing you read?
The last thing I read, The Warded Man was
We read that.
and by read I mean I usually listen to audiobooks a lot because I can do that and work at the same time. And I just listened to The Warded Man again recently, which I like a lot, by the way. It's a good story. So
Oh, yes.
if you ever get a chance to read The Warded, it's Peter Brett. Has the whole series, the Demon Cycle series, where it's pretty cool.
There's a bug on your paper.
There is. Oh, leave him alone. He's fine. He's tiny. I get lots of bugs in here.
Have you heard of the artist Paul Kelly?
Paul who?
Calle.
No, I'll have to look it up. I'll have to. Calle.
Wrote a book called The Pencil.
Oh, it's possible I have it. I have to go look because I do have at least one book about the history and of the pencil in general. It's funny. I looked this up not too long ago, but the word pencil used to mean very small brush. I do know that part. That it was when artists would paint with a brush, it was called a pencil until people started using pencils, in which I guess it looked pretty much like you were using a tiny little brush to make marks, so they called it a pencil.
Can you talk about how you get values of the secondary smaller forms like the lines under the bottom of your eyelid?
These?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more or less pushing and pulling what's there. Because here's the thing is like, right now this looks, this is more, there's more shadow and darkness in this than there is in my face. But if you also look at the the picture of the face, there's no real white on this paper at all. Look at the white of the paper. This paper compared to this, there's even the parts that are the whitest here are still like a 10% gray.
Right.
Even though maybe the pinpoint highlight in my eye is just a little bit darker than the paper. And so you get used to like lay down a lighter value and then start picking lines out, and then as things start to build up, you can start to reinforce the lines that you like and diminish the ones you don't.
Yeah, gotcha.
But sometimes it helps to have a shape to work with, and then like the overall shape out, and then you just lay a little bit of graphite in over the whole thing so you don't have white in that space. Like this wouldn't look as contrast and as dark if I laid graphite in around it, just like this has a darker value around it.
Right.
That's why this looks so light,
Gotcha.
But if I were going to do that, I wouldn't have done it this way, because if I were going to lay graphite in around it, I would have done that part first, because these edges would have all been light and there wouldn't have been lines. So I reversed some of that. Yeah, for being on a white background.
You've done that before.
Right, because if you're doing it very lightly, it would look good, because you would end up on a white piece of paper. You would end up doing, when you talk about lost lines and lost edges,
right,
you would end up losing the edges of the highlights when it went into the white paper, instead of losing the edges of the dark when it went into the dark area. So it would reverse. Right.
Yes.
All you have to do is mentally reverse it.
Gotcha.
So
you say that.
Well, yeah, no, you can go back with an eraser and you see that if I were to lighten this area here, kind of back up like that, you can just erase it. And so this was pretty dark, so it won't ever erase back to pure white, but it would be fairly simple to go in on the other side, though. And if you lay in graphite away from the edge, to make the edge start to pop back out again.
Gotcha. I see.
There are very few real lines in things, in terms of, it's all when people talk about edges, that's what they mean. Because we want to mentally, when we draw things, reduce them to lines for simplicity, but there are very few real lines, with maybe the exceptions of being at certain scales. Things like hairs and things like that will be line. But even that
This
is
isn't
more
a
like
line.
is more like you know, there are little areas of
Dark.
value
I
of
see.
even, you know. So
Carly likes that picture. She said hi.
oh, is that Carly?
Yes, she's up.
Oh, hey, Carly. So if you want to, you know, to be, you know, if you, but I wasn't really trying to be very, you know, like I said, realistic about it. So I didn't really push it for that.
Hello, tiny algae.
Tiny algae.
How do you get that texture? Is it the paper? Yes.
This is mostly the paper, and then going through it, and where it isn't the paper,
Noodling it.
yeah, you just make it. So sometimes when I'm working on my own, like when I'm working at night on my own stuff, I'll, in an area, I'll tend to just kind of go through and do this on top of everything before I start laying in a value, and then those lines will start to suggest certain things that I'll
Shapes.
then emphasize and play with.
Is that
Yeah.
where you get some of the repetitive shapes in your stuff?
Yeah, yeah, you know.
Do you think art is a special kind of language?
I do. I mean, it's a communication for sure, you know, and in that respect, you know, it's whether you're trying to communicate something to yourself, you know, in a wordless sort of way, or to other people. I mean, to me, the objective of doing it externally, rather than just thinking things, is you know, a need to communicate to others some aspect or something that you're trying to, you know, figure out.
Mm-hmm.
But
Daryl says you should show him the old, you know, your muse, the old face.
oh, I did an oil study of a woman's face I found in a magazine once, and she looked very like she didn't take any crap from anyone, and she sort of became my muse. I kept her in the studio I still have her somewhere. I don't know where exactly.
She's in the drawer back there. In the flat pile.
But it was me. I was just using black and white oil, trying to figure out if I could get what amount of detail I could get. See, this is when things start to deviate. Like I'm starting to get to a point now where I don't want to see this anymore because I'm starting to like find things that have nothing to do with the photo. And now that the reference is just sort of getting in my way, because I'm going to end up erasing or changing a lot of what looked like the photo because I started. So what started happening?
What was
Get
it?
closer. What started happening in here is that it's harder to see in the contrast of the camera, but there's like some dimensional stuff that in reality that looks like right here, when you look at this in the real world, it
Right.
starts to look like there's some bump going on, and I want to, like, if I'll start following this and let this sort of infect the rest of what I've been doing, and it'll change. So during the week we'll post this, and I'll show you what it ends up changing into, depending on how far it gets.
Yeah, it's like I was reading people's comments or something, and all of a sudden those three swoops across your forehead came out. I didn't even notice that. Do you follow a ritual when you begin drawing each day?
I do have a
Ritual over
both
coffee.
both a physical ritual of, like, you know, getting ready to work, whereas, like, you know, I'll have like 2 cups of coffee. Sometimes I go for a walk before I work, and sometimes I don't. And then I also have a ritual when I'm getting ready to start like a larger piece. I'll go through this kind of thing. I call it. I've been calling it the ritual of looking, where I'll sit around with all these sketches that I have, and sort of spend some time with them to see if there's anything that I've sketched previously that is jumping out at me to do right now, or if I just want to start something new. And it's usually about a 50-50 thing. Half the time I start something entirely new, and half the time, like, something that I've done previously and put aside is demanding to be addressed.
They're having a discussion
About?
if you're a Dark Lord or not,
Oh,
or a wizard,
let me know.
or a wizard.
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, we've talked about, you know, magic and what it, because I think there was another artist that had a statement at one point where he was talking about how that magic was originally about what people, like the written word. That's the reason it was called spelling. When somebody spells something, and you think about how the world was before people actually, it was common for people to learn how to read and write, that the people who could probably seemed like they were passing off magical spells to each other, because they would write something down, send it to someone, and have an effect happen. Something would happen.
Yes.
There was a transfer of
Yes.
information, right? So I feel like on some level, when you create a kind of a communication that exists on a gut level, that there's a form of magic in that. And it's literally, when you look at artwork is probably the most literal representation of the idea of a thought form. When you talk about like metaphysically, like a tulpa, or which, when something is created from pure thought. Well, I mean, art is pretty much what it is, right? Because it only exists as thought, and then suddenly it's drawn, and the drawing, the piece of the painting, is the thing. It is the physical representation of the thought. So therefore, it is the thing. So when you make a drawing, they say, what does this represent? Well, it does metaphorically represent something, but it is also something in and of itself. It is a thing that exists. I don't know. It's sometimes a splitting of hairs to create sort of to me, it's all magic. Maybe it's because I want there to be that kind of magic in the world, where you do something and it has an effect on the world, and this is one way where that sort of, to me, seems like it does happen, is when people do the kind of artwork that speaks to themselves and to other people. It has an effect on themselves and other people, because it's this manifestation of, like a lot of the stuff that I draw has more to do with guardians than with. I mean, a lot of people look at what I draw and they think it's monsters, but that's only because a lot of the guardians that I draw wear terrible faces, and that's because I believe that we pay too much attention, or we actually give too much weight to beauty in regards to how it affects, how it is viewed as good,
right?
Rather than in reality, beauty is a construct, of our time, right? And many times it's a construct of an agenda. People are trying to sell you beauty all the time.
Oh yeah. Oh man, that last narrative that you wrote.
That's for this piece.
I know.
There's a narrative that comes with this piece that I've had for a while yet, but well. Okay, so there's a narrative that comes with this one.
Yeah, there's a
narrative for this one that will be written with it when we put it up, like in the next week or so.
Okay, we can do that this week.
And it has a lot to do with that, actually, what I just said.
Yes. What do you think of texture and fetching drawings? I don't know.
Oh, fetching? I love the portraiture is great. I love it.
He knows what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
And I have one of his books. No, it's beautiful. Yeah, there's some incredible work there. There's another guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head though, that is along with Fetchin. They work in a similar way. They both do beautiful work. I like texture when it shows up in anything, pretty much.
Someone asked if this is not going to be a self-portrait then?
In as much as most art that an artist does is a self-portrait in a way, but not really, no. Not a visible, like I'm not trying to do a likeness of myself.
Sorry, I'm like moving around. I had to stand up.
Mm-hmm. Does it stop?
I don't know.
It looks like our comments aren't moving now.
Yeah, it might be. You keep drawing.
Very often, whenever I have dark areas show up, I'll go back and, I'll draw them in, but then I'll lighten them again, so I can go back and play with the detail and the texture. Somebody was asking about getting lines in the shadowed areas earlier. This is one of the ways that sometimes do it was I'll just go over the whole thing and lighten some of it. Not in a real precise way, just to, just make it a little bit chaotic again so I can go back and play with what's already there.
Right.
I also tend to like to pick certain areas and do this thing. I'm not sure if I made up this phrase or if it just came from somewhere else, like art school or what, but something called I call it boxing the shadows, when you actually draw like a centerline shadow on the rounded forms, but then there's a slightly lighter area in the shadowed area, so it looks like there's a core shadow that follows. It sort of surrounds the darker shadows in the piece. It kind of makes it livens it up a bit to me, instead of it being just it kind of gives a little bit of an idea or the indication of a reflected light in the shadow.
Okay.
Plus, it lets things like this pop out. There was a lot of like little circular threads in the paper right here that look quite cool.
I think we are frozen.
Are we frozen?
Yep.
How long were we at that point?
A couple minutes.
I don't know if you guys can still hear us or not, but on our side the phone froze.
That's all right. It's all right. We can wrap it up. It's only been 45 minutes, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'll still work on this though, and then we'll post it.
Okay. What if you want to keep the other one going?
I can. The other, we'll keep. If you can still hear me, we'll keep the other video going, and then once I finish the drawing, or get it to a point tonight, we'll put that up on YouTube, on our channel on YouTube, which you might want to say if you haven't said it.
Yes. Oh. YouTube.com/Alan Williams Studio.
This happens every now and then. It seems
Yeah,
to be
just,
completely random.
Yep.
Sometimes people tell us that they can still hear us, and sometimes
Yeah,
they
but
don't.
my comments aren't going through either.
No.
So that's okay. Or you can just keep talking to me. You can talk about what's going on this week. No.
I have no comments.
You have no. Oh my God! I cannot believe you throw that on the ground. It's this one that
I've
kills me.
always been doing it.
I know, but I can give you a little glass jar. I know, but now my blue booty will be.
It's
dirty.
a symbol of love.
It'll be dirty. What?
You have graphite foot. I'll call you a soot foot now.
Yeah, except then I have to clean up the kitchen floor because your little footprints are everywhere. What have you turned yourself into? Interesting. I like that eyebrow. Okay, like permanently hurt my knuckle when I was trying to get the ice out of the ice maker. When I was trying to defrost it.
Oh yeah, when you were ice picking
Beating
it?
when I was ice picking it. Yeah, because I whacked it. And now it hurts all the time. Oh, that's what I need. See, not nearly as interesting if it's just you and me. I'm just joking. Is this what you would look like if you had a very long beard?
Probably. If my beard looked really funky like this.
I love you.
Love you.
Alright, since we are not communicating any further, I'm going to turn off the phone.
Alright. Yeah, because we can't get anybody's questions done.
That's right. Alright.
You can go online and say, sorry about the technical problems. We had technical issues tonight.
New. It started doing something different when you did that.
When I did what?
Daryl said it's still live.
Huh.
He said it's still going, but this thing is.
Well, it's probably not now. You turned it off, right?
Yes. It's being up. It's not going to let me share it either.
Oh, yeah, this one. So.
Daryl said it was still going when we were talking.
Huh.
I had to stand up part the way through because I can only sit for so long. This chair rolls.
I don't need your life story.
Oh my God.
What do you say? No?
And I asked him if I was still going. It's turned off. It's just being a pain in the butt. It was going until you said you were going to stop. Since you can't interact.
Well, that's disconcerting, though.
What?
We can't talk to people. It's
Right. It's being a pain in the ass. Look, it's not even registering that it's there. Might not be. We'll just have this one. I like it. Now you pause it over there and then start it back up.